Rev up your engines!
Well, I said that Ford was making a mistake building their electric Mustang SUV in Mexico. Well, it's already showing up. Ford has already recalled 38,000 of these Mustang Mach-E's. The glass, man, they'd be bonded right and it can fly off. And not just any glass, your windshield in front of you. They might not have bonded them on right. Everyone knows Mexico is a country that has quality control issues. Why Ford decided to build it on there? Well, obviously, they just want to make them cheaper and make a higher profit. They can't even glue the windshields on correctly. Now, it isn't just the windshield. The moonroof, they call it panoramic view, right? They're not glued on right either. Now, they're not sending notices out until late October 2021. But, I mean, I warn people. They don't build things in Mexico all that great. They can't even glue the sunroof and the windscreen on right. I think they made a big mistake building those things in Mexico. Tesla was bad enough that he built a bunch of his cars in California under tents in a parking lot. The new electric Mustangs that they say are all the hot rage, right? They can't even glue the windshields and a sunroof on right. And this is the tip of the iceberg. This just started. I can't wait to see what happens when they've been out a while. Well, here we go with another Ford Bronco story. It turns out that the Ford dealers are trying to screw over even Ford Motor Company. They cook up fake customers so they can get more Broncos sent to their particular Ford dealership so they can sell them. The world's gone insane. It's bad enough that they're marking them up, but they're trying to get their hands on as many as they possibly can so they can sell them. So they're competing against all the other dealers. They say that some of their dealers are using their own workers, create reservations to get a Bronco, and then they'll get more Broncos sent to their stores so they can sell them. And these are just, they're not buying them. They just want to get them in the store, and then somebody else will buy them. They'll sell them to somebody else and mark them up. Their way, they're bypassing Ford's dealer allocation system, and each one gets so much. You know, there's always loopholes and bureaucracies, and even the dealerships are trying to take advantage of it now. So Ford's going to try out name matching for all Bronco deliveries. So the name has to match the person who reserved it, who actually buys it, so they can't have Joe Smith, who works at the store, order one, and then Charlie Jones ends up buying the car. So now the new policy that Ford has says that the dealers have to have at least 60% of their Broncos sold to actual people who reserved them. And Ford's supposed to monitor the sales every month. I always warn people not to trust dealerships when they're getting their cars fixed, charging too much money, doing stuff that maybe doesn't need to be done. Well, here, the dealerships are even trying to screw Ford over. Realize they're independent dealerships. Ford doesn't run the dealerships. They're guys that have a Ford dealership. They buy the stuff from Ford. So even the dealerships are trying to screw Ford over here. So things with the Bronco are getting absurd. There's no arguing that. Even the Ford dealerships are trying to screw Ford Motor Company over. Well, here's an interesting one. Jason, one of the viewers, has a Chevy van in Florida. It was overheating. He took it to the Chevy dealer, and they said it was going to be $800 to diagnose and replace thermostats. That didn't fix the overheating, and they were supposed to fix a recall because it was a Chevy van. This is what I'm telling you about GM and a lot of these companies. The particular van was actually a rebadged Nissan van. And the Chevy dealer said, well, after spending the $800, well, we don't have the equipment to work on powertrains for Nissans, even though, of course, it was labeled as a Chevy van and it was under warranty. This is why I tell people, stay away from GM. It's not a good company. They can't even fix their own vehicles. Hey, they're selling these rebadged Nissan vans, right? But then their dealerships can't fix them? And I talked to the service manager, and they said, I quote, "We are not familiar with this vehicle because it is a Nissan powertrain, and we're not equipped to service it." Now, this was a Chevrolet dealership in Florida. If they're going to sell cars, and they can't work on it, they have enough problems at the GM dealers fixing their own vehicles. Fixing one that's rebadged Nissan sold as a Chevy, this is why I say, if you stay away from GM, you'll be happy in the long run. The only good thing that they really make are those big trucks, like the 2500. The 3500. Those are good vehicles. They cost a lot of money now. My AC guy in Tennessee, hey, he just bought one for $110,000. It's all souped up. But then again, he's not going to get it for 6 months because the chips shortage. So, not the greatest company in the world. I would stay away from them. Motorcycle Man says, do turbos get slower and less efficient as they get old? I got an R33 Nissan Skyline GT with a stock turbocharger, 70,000 miles. A lot of people say they don't spool in first gear right. Well, of course. Everything wears out with age. Turbochargers spin. They're spinning like mad. The bearings are going to wear out. They become less efficient. Just pure friction, even if you change the oil, because they're oil lubricated too, and they spin so fast. And yes, they do lose their efficiency as they age. And I mean, that's, you didn't give the year, but hey, it's a Skyline, so it's got to be really old. Yeah, those things do wear out over time. Now say, oh well, the turbocharger should be good for 100,000 miles. It's like, I want a car to go 3, 4, 500,000 miles. But of course, they will wear out, and you're talking about first gear. You're going to find the most problems in first gear because you're taking off, and when you take off, you need the most power. Once the cars are ready in motion, then it's easier to get it go faster. To go from 0 to 30 takes an awful lot of power, and it strains it the most, and that's when you're going to notice the loss of turbocharger efficiency the most, when you're taking off. Seabass96 says, good evening, Scotty. I got a 98 Toyota 4Runner. The alarm went off. I disconnected the negative terminal in my battery. What can I do to avoid this in the future? All right. Alarms go off. The way they're designed is you open the door, trunk, whatever. When that light comes on, the alarm system notices there's an electrical drain that turns the alarm on. Right? Generally on a Toyota, as the battery gets old, it loses a certain amount of power, and it gets below a certain parameter, and it turns the alarm on automatically. So have your battery load tested. Even AutoZone, O'Reilly, whatever, they can check them free. And if the battery's bad, replace it. That's probably your main problem. Now, if it isn't, then you have an electrical short somewhere that's draining power, and when it does that drain, that can turn the alarm on. You can check out my video, Fixing Battery Drain Your Car, for that one. See if you can fix that. But first have the battery tested. It's a Toyota. Generally, it just means your battery's getting weak, and that will turn the alarm on. Just pray that it's not your neighborhood kids, whacking on your car, beating on it at night. When I was young mechanic in Lewiston, New York, there was a store across the street. It was a TV store, right? And the kids used to go on the back door. He had one of the first alarms. They'd beat on it, and they'd run away in the middle of the night, and as an alarm, he'd come to the store in the middle of the night, think he was being robbed. It was just the kids beating on the door, so you never know. Clinton Carmona says, I recently got a 2019 Hyundai Elantra. When I coast to stop or slow down with the brakes, I can feel the car downshift, which is a small jerk. It's hardly noticeable, but it's there. I've never felt before. Is this normal? I took it to a dealership. They ran the transmission through its diagnostics, came back with no codes. It's not normal for any regular car that's built right, but it's relatively normal for Hyundais because they're not built all that well. Their transmissions are not that good. And yeah, you're going to get glitches like that. You bought it used, and it's what? It's 3 years old now because the new models are out. So there's no saying how it originally worked. If you would have bought it brand new, you would have known for sure. Maybe the car was always that way. No car should jerk and feel stuff like that, but they're not perfectly made. That's why I tell people, you want a good car. It's going to last a long time. Run pretty smooth. Get a Toyota or a Honda. Don't get a Korean car. The Korean cars don't have the quality. They just do not have the quality, and you're finding that out. The dealer said, oh, there's no codes. That's why I said there's no codes. That's not the meaning of it. You got to get a fancy tool like I have and actually use it, where you look at the parameters of the shifts and see, is it shifting correctly? And you'll probably find on a downshift, it's missing the shift by a certain amount of time. Should be almost instantaneous, and if it takes too much time and it jerks, there's a problem. But they're not going to tell you that just because, oh, it's normal. Because it is kind of normal for Hyundais. They're not made that well. Will Hatton says, I'm thinking about buying a 1988 Mercury XR4TI, the first sports car project. It is a 2.3-liter turbo Lima engine from the Mustang SVO. What should I look out for? You should look out for your own sanity, let me tell you. I used to work on Mercuries. It was almost impossible to get parts for them. Now you say it's going to be a project car. Realize you're going to have one heck of a time getting parts for that thing in the United States. I'm assuming you're in the United States. And if you are, I would not touch that thing with a 10-foot pole. Back in the day, you could barely get parts for the things. Today, you're never going to get parts for the things. It would be a pain in the butt. They're not really collector's items. They're not really worth that much money. If you get one dirt cheap and you want a toy to play around with and you're not going to drive it much, you're still going to have problems getting parts. You want an oddball car and you're into oddball cars, go ahead. Just be forewarned. Getting parts for that thing is going to be a stinker. A real stinker. I could barely get parts for them back in the day when they sold the things. So if I were you, I'd stay far away from that thing. Find something that's more logical that you can get parts for. I mean, if you want an oddball car, go ahead. But be forewarned. Getting parts for it is going to be like finding hen's teeth. If you think you have problems with rodents, well, there's a guy in North Dakota that went to his Chevy Avalanche and found, I'm not making this up, 42 gallons of walnuts stashed inside his truck. He opened the hood. It's packed with walnuts. It was a red squirrel. Beware of red squirrels. They even stashed them in places he could have to take the fenders apart to get to. And some of them even got into the frames. They stuck them in little holes so when he corners it, rattle, 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 rattle. I actually saw that years ago. Bought a car to our gas station. My grandfather was the chief mechanic. It had a noise. We searched and searched. We finally figured what it was. Inside the frame, when they built it, the guy at the factory put a golf ball. And when you cornered the golf ball, it went blue, blue. We figured it out. We cut a hole and took the golf ball out. But the squirrel was trying the same thing, only with walnuts. But at least the squirrel didn't chew up the wiring. This is why I tell people, if you live in an area with a lot of rodents, get one of those rodent squashing devices. You can get them in 12 volt, where you can hook up to your car's battery. They don't use much power. They put out ultrasonic sounds that drives the squirrels nuts. And then they'll stay away from your car and go to your neighbor's car instead. So that's a good way to avoid squirrels filling your car with walnuts or whatever nuts happen to be in your area. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.